3 monster 0 gauge oxygen free copper. Measure twice, cut once. We are done. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a fantastic day as always. We are out in the garage doing a series of videos and upgrades today, so be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to follow along with everything we're up to. In this particular video, if you can't tell by the title or thumbnail, we are doing the Big 3 upgrade. So I'm in the middle of some audio upgrades on the truck right now. We've got some other parts on the bench that we'll be installing here soon. We've got some amps and wiring kits and everything else for the truck. But first, before we get too far in, I want to do the Big 3 upgrade. So what is that? That is where you upgrade the main 3 wires from your alternator to the battery and the ground of the vehicle to make sure you have the maximum amount of current flow possible, so you get all that power to your amps and speakers, everything else electrical on the truck. So you don't have any dimming lights and fading. You may still, depending on your current draw, you know, how big your amps are in the vehicle, you may still have some dimming lights. You might need a capacitor or something, but that's beside the point. We're starting with the easiest, best thing first is to make sure our wiring is up to snuff and making sure that it's got as much current flow as possible. So that's what we're doing today on the 2017 Ram project, my truck. Got a whole playlist of videos if you want to follow along with all the stuff that we have done on the truck on the channel. I'll leave that link down below. And if you want to leave it a thumbs up, I'd appreciate it tremendously. It helps the channel out and the wonderful YouTube algorithm. And then leave any comments down below if you got any questions about this or other projects we're up to on the channel. If you want to subscribe, I'd appreciate that as well. Always happy to have you guys hang out with us on videos and everything else. But let's go ahead and show you what we got to do, and get to it. So you can read tons and tons of articles online about which company to go with, whether you source your own wire, do all the stuff yourself, everything. But I came across this Skar Audio Big 3 0 gauge upgrade kit. So it's oxygen-free copper, comes pre-crimped and not soldered, heat shrunk and everything on the sides, one side, and then you can cut to length. So what they've done is they've got you 3 separate, let me get it out the package. And we're back. So they have given you 3 monster 0 gauge oxygen free copper cables on here. So one is, you can use whatever color you want to. It doesn't really matter as long as you keep it straight in your head and don't screw it up. But we'll use the blue, I'm sure, for the power cable. And like I said, they come pre-crimped on one end with your connector and everything heat shrunk, ready to go. And you have to cut and do the other side for yourself. And then we've got our 2 main negative cables. So we're going to run, I'll show you, well, there's a diagram right here on the package. So it shows you running a negative from the alternator to the ground location, which is usually on the frame somewhere. And then you've got your power that runs from the alternator to your positive power on the battery, and then your negative from the battery to a ground location on the frame as well. So most everybody just runs the negative over to the battery, and then the negative here over to the frame, and you're good to go. You've got it all connected. Some people go above and beyond, and that's more than fine, and they put these huge cables to the fuse box and everything else. But I think that might be a little bit overkill, because what you're really trying to do is just get the maximum amount of power from your alternator to the battery, and then you hook straight from your battery to your amp setup and everything. So you just want to make sure everything's flowing as good as possible. And they give you 2 huge negative cables to run for your grounds, or not negatives, just cables to run for your grounds. All your extra hardware, zip ties, everything that you could need. And then here we are again. We've got our power wire is 6 foot. We've got 2 ground wire 4 foot, and then there's the rest of your stuff on the package too. So I'll leave this link down below. Not a sponsor at all or anything. I picked this up myself to get this project done. And I also bought, here's some of our other audio stuff on the bench ready to go, JL Audio. I also bought a cutter and crimp set off of Amazon, because I didn't have anything big enough to crimp these 0 gauge connectors. But I'll leave that link down below too if you want to check that out. We'll have to see how those turn out. And then as for the truck, we'll come over here and look. We're again on a 2017 Ram platform. Thankfully, our alternator's right here on top. Super easy to get to, not that bad. But in my case, this heat shield or whatever it is, I can't get it up without getting this stupid tube out the way. And so this hard piece aluminum for my Ram Air kit on the truck won't let this thing come out, so I have to pop this off. You may not have to do that in order to get to the power right there on the top back of the alternator. And then I think I might just, it says to go from the engine to the ground or whatever, but I think I might just tap right into this bolt right here on the alternator and ground it, and then straight over to the battery. There's our positive and negatives. Got to figure out what'll fit just right on here the best and not interfere with anything. We're just going to probably follow this existing wire loom right down there and right back up to everything. And then right below the battery on my setup, if we look through the wheel well, I'm pretty sure that right back there, if I can zoom in on it, I'll put a light on it, is a chassis ground right there. So I'll be able to tap right into that, and short and sweet. So yeah, that's what we got. So we just got to take a few things apart to get a little bit better access and measure the wire, make sure, measure twice, cut once. We don't want to cut it too short and screw it up. And yeah, snake this alongside the other existing wire. You don't want to take loose your existing wire. This is adding to what's already there. There's no need to take it apart, remove anything that's already there. This is just building up and adding to provide more flow. So let's start taking some stuff apart, see what we can work out. All right, here's a quick look at what I've got going on. So I disconnected the negative to get everything out and, not connected anymore. And I took this little nut loose. It's a 12 millimeter, I think it's 12 millimeter nut off this main power. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this sit flush underneath it, then put that back on top of it, tighten everything down. Should have a really good connection like that. This connector is way too big to fit on either one of these, and these are fuse connections. There's a lot of debate and everything about adding a fuse in line. Better safe than sorry. If you want to go that route, absolutely go that route. And if you got a big massive stereo system and everything that you've added a bunch of extra wires and amps and stuff, you probably already have a fuse block in it. We're just going to directly wire it to it and make sure we've got everything tucked away and out of the way. So we're not going to do that today, but so I should be able to run right down from there, down that existing wiring harness, and right back up to the back of the alternator. So that's where we are right now. Going to go ahead and kind of test this out first, see how it looks, and then go from there. Alright, so that did work, but it takes a lot of elbow grease to get this thing clamped down on there good. Not the prettiest thing in the world by any stretch of the imagination. It is on there very solid though. It did crimp it good. So we'll slide our heat shield, heat shrink tubing on there and get that all nice and neat. You won't even be able to know or be able to tell that that's so ugly under there. But we did get it on there. Hopefully we got it cut right to length. Then we can get this one installed and move to the next one. Alright guys, so we're making some progress, although things I had to change slightly from my original plan. Not a big deal so far. We've got 2 of the 3 wires installed. Not quite zip tied just yet in place until I get everything exactly how I want it. So I took the bolt or the nut off the back of the top of the alternator there, and I've got my power wire run right there. Tried to finagle it where I could get around this other clip and wire without resting on it or bending it or potentially breaking anything. Couldn't quite get it to go underneath like I wanted it to because of the other stuff that's down there. So I had to come off the top of it a little bit, tighten it back down. The little protective cap doesn't fit back on there squarely or snugly. That's all right. That's not a big deal. But unless you modify it somehow, that's not going to go back on. And so I ran it down along the other wiring harness here and then back up so I could zip tie it across here. Originally, I had said I was going to put it underneath this main nut and bolt right here. But after I test fitted it to start with, and I thought everything was good, but when I went to snug it up, turns out that the terminal here is probably about 1 millimeter or 2 too wide to fit securely in between these fuses, or there's a plastic casing on this thing that holds everything together, and it won't sit snug underneath it either without trying to modify it. I did not want to screw around with this stock piece with these fuses and everything and try to just make it work. So what I did was just came right off the main bolt right through the post. Figured that'd probably be easier and cleaner in case I needed to take something loose. When I get to the stage of installing my amps and everything, I may get me a cleaner power block to hook all of this stuff to. But for right now, no big deal. Still looks pretty clean, comes right up, won't get in the way of anything. And then I've got my negative or my ground wire come right off of the alternator bracket right there. So I did have to drill out and make the hole in the little bracket right here, the terminal, a little bit bigger. That alternator bolt that goes through there is too wide for the stock hole, but that's all right. So I just drilled it out slightly. Now it goes right in there. I've got it in such a fashion where it won't get anywhere near the pulleys or the belts or anything moving or hot. And then when I get everything said and done like I want it, I'm going to pull it back tighter over here and zip tie to the main harness to make sure everything is out the way and follow the same route. And then you can see it goes right down underneath there and then pops out under here. And that's one of my factory ground locations to the frame. So I've got it bolted right in to that same factory location, heat shrinked, ready to go. So yeah, so that's 2 of the 3. Now we just need to come off of the negative for the battery, and I think we have another ground point right here to the frame of the truck. So I think I'm just going to take this loose, and I'll have a little short jump from the negative post on the battery right over here to the frame, and we can call ourselves done. Neaten everything up a little bit more, of course, but so far so good, not too bad. I did have to take all of this loose. Again, that's just because of this Mopar cold air intake and all of that to get the cover off to get to the alternator. You may not have to worry about all that in your setup, but anyway, not a big deal, and we keep on pressing on. And other than some zip ties and making sure everything's nice and neat and out the way, we are done. We've got our ground from our alternator bracket and engine block down to our frame, showed you earlier. We've got our power from the back of the alternator at the top, run over here and to the power positive on the battery, and we've got our negative run from the battery to the ground on the chassis frame over here. I scraped the paint off of here. This bolt actually goes through the fender and into the frame, so I think it's a pretty legitimate ground, but I went ahead and scraped the paint off of this inside piece just so it would sit flush against bare metal and this bolt going into the frame over here. So I think we're good to go. Let me know in the comments, would you have run something a little differently, or would you have used this? I didn't want to try to put two grounds on that frame rail down there at the bottom because it didn't feel like with these big old lugs on there that they would have sat flat and made a really good connection. So that's why I chose to go with that one. Plus, much shorter run. I got some spare wire if I need to redo anything or fix it up. But yeah, there it is. Now I'm just gonna tidy these two up over here. This one is completely out of the way. Nothing wrong there. Just going to put some zip ties on these to make sure they don't shift around or move, or if something were to happen to come loose, it wouldn't flop around and get sucked up in the fan belt or the electric fan up here. So, but yeah, there we go. Now I just got to put it all back together and see what we got. Quick shot of everything buttoned back up. The air box is all put back together. Mass airflow sensor, or air intake temperature sensor, I believe is what that is. All put back together. There's our wiring neatened up and zip tied all out of the way and back together. So we're good to go there. Now we just got to fire it up, see if we notice any difference. There have been reports. Let me switch camera. There have been reports on forums and stuff that people say they actually have felt more power out of their vehicle after this. If so, then that's an added benefit. We'll see what happens. I'll leave maybe an update comment down below. Yeah, after a few weeks running around with this thing, see if we notice any difference with that. Maybe, you know, extra electrical add-ons helps the alternator work a little bit better. I don't know, but our main purpose today was just to make sure the alternator and the battery are talking as good as they can to each other, and that way on our next video and upgrade we can start with the amps and the subs and everything. So again, make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you want to follow along on the journey. Hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed the video or found it informative whatsoever. You got any comments about anything or thoughts about how I might have should have done something a little different, drop them down below. Try to answer everybody's comments. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me for another upgrade video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Bye.